What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Mortgage Coach Friday Mastermind. Every Friday, 9 o'clock, we are here to bring amazing guests, have an amazing conversation. Todd, when is number 300? I forgot what day it is.
2 weeks.
September
2 weeks.
16th.
The 15th. Okay, so
16th.
the 16th. Thank you. So mark your calendar, guys. We're going to have the number 300 show of this Friday Mastermind. Don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but we'll try to make it a great conversation. Todd, anything you want to say before we bring on the special guest today and frame the conversation?
I'm just always, as always, I can't believe we're hitting, episode number 298, right? I mean, you and I have been doing this now for over 6 years, and we've been, super fortunate to have great guests along the way, great co-hosts along the way, and just such a privilege to be part of this community. And, I'm really excited to have Kevin back on. I think Kevin has, long ago officially become the most involved real estate agent in our community. And, I always love it because, Kevin and I are so busy, even though we, live, half hour apart. And ironically, I actually spend a lot of time working in Kevin's office, but we literally never have time to talk. And so although we just had coffee about 2 weeks ago, it's always good to have time to spend with Kevin. And I'll kind of frame it this way, right? Kevin spent a lot of time in here, and he's always really generous with his time with our community, and always has something really relevant to say. And oftentimes when we have a market like this, loan officers go quiet, right? They stop really doing what they need to do and talk to real estate agents. So I think that this conversation today is going to be just one that everyone needs to have some great takeaways to then turn around and have conversations with your partners around you who need you now more than ever. So before I introduce Kevin, though, let's bring on Deborah Bird, our other co-host with the most.
Well, one of these days I'm going to send Kevin a Texas Rangers hat so he can quit wearing that damn Dodgers one. Almost the same color for Rangers, but I'm excited to have you on because, Kevin, I know you're so real and authentic, and I know we're talking about a shifting market and you're going to shoot it to us straight. So I'm excited. I've got my notepad, my win by noon planner, and I'm ready to take lots of notes. So let's go. All
right, guys. So here's how I'd love to have the conversation, Kevin. Let's assume that the majority of the people watching this are mortgage professionals, loan officers, among the country's best. Let's try to deliver this in a way that they'll want to watch the recording with one of their real estate agents. Like, it'd be a great conversation to have with a realtor or a group of realtors. And so really what we're going to do now becomes a resource to our community to have a better conversation together and to deliver more value. So for anyone who hasn't heard you before, could you just remind folks of the kind of impact you're making in housing? Because you've got a lot of realtors in your network. You're doing a lot of business in your local community. Could you just give us an overview?
Yeah, first of all, I got to say, that's a lot of pressure though with getting ready to take notes. Just relax, put the pen down. If I say something smart, I'll say it really slow, and you won't have to be writing that much. Trust me. So obviously, as you said, my name's Kevin Kaufman. So I run a real estate team. I've got a business partner. We're based in Tempe, Arizona. And we do a few hundred transactions, 100-ish million in volume every year, have for quite some time. Been in business with my business partner since February of 2014, primarily in Phoenix, though we still do sell a little bit of real estate in other cities, but Phoenix is home base and sort of our primary focus on that side of things. Our business has evolved quite a bit over the years, and really, Dave, this is, I think, the reason why we connect so well, and the reason why Todd and I have connected so well is it always seems to connect around building more of a community within real estate professionals. And so what I mean by that is there was a time where the main focus of our sales business was actually an expansion model where we were selling just as much, actually more real estate outside of Phoenix than we were inside. Everything from that to I started a Facebook group a few years ago, about, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago now, called Next Level Agents, and kind of probably got 25, 30,000 members in that group. And that's just a free resource online community, right? That's sort of what I would call non-denominational. So I don't care what brokerage you're at. I don't care what coaching company you pay. We're all real estate professionals, and we should be helping each other. And then got a podcast that I run as well for effectively the same reason, because I like to sit people down and pick their brain and learn from them, and give a stage to people that don't normally get stages, because they don't fit the status quo of what their brokerage or their coaching company or whoever has a stage likes to highlight and feature. And so I do that. And then I've also got within another community at EXP Realty. So I spent my first 11 years at Keller Williams. And then in June of 2018, picked up our business and moved over to EXP Realty, where we've got a community of about 2,000 agents or so that we also work with very closely to sort of help lead and guide, and to bring culture and whatnot too. So got my thumb on the pulse of it, if you will, on the sales side on the ground here in Phoenix, but also I effectively spend all day, every day talking to real estate agents around the country. Like just an hour ago, I was on the phone with a good buddy of mine who is the #1 agent in Lexington, Kentucky by a mile. And so we're spending time talking about, I talk to people like him effectively every day.
So guys, just connect the dots on this. So the thing that I would say, I mean, all of it's impressive. Running a team that consistently does over 100 million in real estate is impressive. But being the type of person that 2,000 other real estate agents would trust to say, hey, I'm going to come under EXP, under you guys, they have options. All these agents could go to other platforms. They could go to other EXP leaders, but the platform that Kevin's created and the person that he is, it's like 2,000 other agents said, I want to be under EXP with you. So this is a real treat, everybody. Like, don't worry about taking notes because we recorded it. So you can rewatch it, and hopefully this will be a great resource. So Kevin, let's just dig in. What are you doing to thrive, and what are you coaching other realtors to do to thrive in this shifting market?
I'll tell you what gosh, it was a conversation yesterday with my team, and I've got a business with my sales team where truthfully, I haven't had to is not the right word. It's about as close to a 7th level real estate sales team as you're going to find that doesn't include family. Meaning I don't spend a ton of time actually actively in the business. I generate business for it, and I coach up our agents and spend time with them and whatnot. So yesterday I was talking to a group of our agents, 5 of them, and we're running this what we call accountability group, which is something I want to talk about as well today. And we're kind of like, after the meeting, we were talking about like what's going on, what should we be doing activity wise, things like that. What am I concerned with? What am I seeing? And I'll tell you, one of the things I shared with them that is true within my team, but true more so in the whole business, in the entire industry, which is I'm really worried for a lot of my friends. I'm worried for a lot of professionals that I love and like, and that I believe are about to have a hard time in the business because things are changing and they haven't yet changed their activities. And I'm not the doom and gloom guy on the market. I know a lot of people would say nothing's changed at all. Other people would say the sky's falling. I tend to be a little more centered on most things, and so this is no different. But what I am very clear on is what helped real estate professionals be successful a year ago is no longer relevant. It's no longer good. Relevant's not the right word. It's no longer good enough. And so the conversations I'm really having right now are about like, how are you spending your working hours? Like if you've got, let's say 8 hours to work a day, as an example, and you're doing that 5 days a week or 6 days a week, like what are you doing during those hours matters more now than it has at any time in the last probably 5 or 6 years, in my opinion. And so having deep conversations about that has been something that's been a reoccurring theme the last few months.
So question to everyone watching, the market has changed. Have you changed? And then really, and what's changed? What have you stopped doing? What have you started doing? And could you just call out some of the things that when you think of this new market, things that people were doing before they should stop doing? If you're still doing this, stop. And things that in this market, you need to be doing this. What comes to mind? Top 2 or 3 stop starts.
What comes to mind mostly is you actually, I'm gonna say this could sound a little crude, but I'm gonna say it because I think everyone will understand it when I say it. A buddy of mine owns a brokerage, and he actually in your old stomping grounds there, Dave, and he was telling me that he was talking to a couple of his top agents who were all relatively new in the business, so last like four years or less. And he said to them recently, he said, listen, you're going to have to stop having one night stands with your leads and start building long-term relationships with them. Everything has changed. And that is, I think, so true. If you think about that for a moment, like we've been order takers. I got licensed in 2007. I remember going to Keller Williams Keller Williams mega agent camp in Austin, Texas in 2008. And Gary Keller was talking about this thing called order takers and how the last run up had these order takers that were then already getting out of the business. And I really didn't have a concept for what that was like. And now I do. I absolutely understand the term order taker in our profession. And those days are now officially gone. It's not to say things were easy for the last couple of years on everything, because certainly representing buyers could be a challenge. And I believe it was a lot easier than what it is today and what it's about to be over the next 12 to 18 months. So understanding the difference of literally having to be skill-based and hone skills in sales. It's not even just sales. It's more like the process of helping somebody through a transaction, both on the buyer side and the seller side. But more importantly, like backing up, nothing matters until you actually have a client. Like nothing matters until you get hired, right? Until somebody signs on the dotted line and hires you to list their property, or hires you to, hopefully we're getting hired to sell them a property to help them on the buy side as well, with contracts. Until someone signs on the dotted line, it doesn't matter. That's our top priority. And the bad news is that today, if it took us, let's say, 10 appointments to get 5 people to hire us last year or the year before, and if those 10 appointments took 30 phone calls, well, now it's probably going to take 60 phone calls, and it might take 15 appointments to get those 5 or 6 people to hire us if we're going to reach our goal. And that's kind of sucks. But it sucks to think, are you telling me I have to work twice as hard? No, but maybe it's 1.75 or 1.5 times as hard, right? Maybe you do need to make 1.5 times the calls that you were making before, and hold 1.5 times the appointments that you were holding before, just to keep your income the same. So if you wanted to raise, bad news, right? But to me, and this is where the perspective comes in, the good news in all of that is, even if you can maintain in a time like this that we're in, and just at the beginning of, I believe that you come out the other side like significantly ahead of the pack, like in a massive way. And so while it's sort of bad news, it's also, in my mind, it's all really good news. I'm excited for this market. It's probably the first time I've been excited about a real estate market in quite a while.
So let's stay in the pocket on this, because I have some things to call out and a question. But before I do that, Todd, is there anything you want to comment on that or expand, but staying in this particular topic? And then Deborah, I'll go to you after Todd.
Oh, come on. Kevin's talking my love language, right? He used the word accountability, although he doesn't want to call it accountability anymore, because I know we're going to get there. But, you just said that an agent may have to, maybe it took 10 calls before to get the number of closings they want, but now it may take 60 calls. And I think that's the real challenge, right? I see that in the loan officer world. I had this same conversation with a loan officer yesterday who wants to increase their business, but is not increasing their activity. So how are you encouraging them to do it? And then question number one, and then number two is, the pushback that I always hear people say is, well, who to call? So if you can just talk about how you're encouraging it and then who you're telling them to call, that would be great.
Todd, I struggle with the encouragement part. Like I'm the guy, like one of the things that I heard a buddy of mine say years ago, and I've just repeated it 1,000 times since, which is, I don't want to drag anybody to the starting line. So I do struggle. Like I'll encourage my friends. I can encourage people I love. I have a hard time encouraging people to do their job. I've chosen to just not work with people like that, and to not spend time with people that need to be encouraged to do the bare minimum. It's not that I can't love those people. I just can't be in business with those people. or I can't spend my time with those people. Not that they don't need the love, I'm just not the right guy for them. And so that said, I feel a lot stronger about like internal motivation. Like, do they have a reason to do the job? Do they have a reason to get up and go every day? Do they have a reason why they need to sell 3 houses next month? And 3 more the following month, and 3 more the fall. Like, do they now, if they have that reason, that's cool. That's great. Cause then I can teach them what to do. I just don't feel like I can really impact. I can tell them the books that I like that inspired me and motivated me and all that. And it's important. I'm not sure that I'm the guy for that. So I do struggle, to be honest, I struggle with that. I rambled on so long of the first part of your question. Will you repeat the second part of your question for me, Todd?
Yeah, the second part is then if they've got to increase their activity and call more people, like who are you telling them to call? How are they figuring that? Because they'll say, well, that's great, Kevin. What do I do?
The truth is, if I look inside anybody's database, I don't care what CRM they're using. If it's on my team, I can actually look inside of it. There's enough people to call. You just don't want to call them again because you called them once 3 months ago, or last week or last month. And so very rarely is the real problem not having enough people to call, in my experience, on my team and with the agents I've consulted over the years. It might be clarity around it, but it's really not even clarity. To me, it's like, a lot of people may know, I've got a dear friend, his name is Ben Kenny, one of the smartest people I've ever met. And he would always tell me, like, you complicate things to justify your inaction. And I think we complicate things by saying, I don't know who to call, to justify not doing anything today. And it's just total BS. Like, if you really don't have enough people to call, like, you got your license yesterday, and so you don't, okay, cool. Let's start with your phone. Let's literally start with the app on your phone that says address book, and start at the A's and start calling them, and then start writing those people notes. And then if you've been in real estate for any period of time, especially if you've ever bought a lead, go back and try to get the money's worth out of those leads you paid for. And then if you're out of people again, go hold an open house, or go cold call and circle prospect, fill in the blank. There's literally hundreds of lead sources out there. So it's really, to me, never about who do I call. It's, am I willing to pick up that 800-pound phone?
All right, Deborah, anything you want to add or ask?
That was just huge, by the way, before Deborah says it. Like, I mean, again, everyone, I always hate to say it because look in the mirror, right? Are you doing that? And when I hear that Ben Kinney quote, I'm like, okay, that's me. I'm looking in the mirror right now myself. So go Deborah, but I'm just like grinning ear to ear right now.
So I'm thinking for the loan officer who's hosting this, and maybe they have a room full of real estate agents in the room, do you theme the days when you're, winning by noon, and when you're doing your prospecting hour? Like Dan Keller was recently on, and he was talking about, Mondays he calls his top 40 agents, Tuesdays are status update calls. So do you theme the days to give clarity and focus? And if so, what are those for the week?
I think that's a great way to do that. I don't like to theme through the day. So me personally, first, I'll talk about me, and then like what I would maybe coach an agent on my team about. Me personally, I need a more simple system to where like a clearer priority, right? So granted, I'm not doing client updates, talking to real estate agents and the client, and then like a loan update call. So it's a little bit different, but I'm just going, who are the 3 to 5 most important people? Like, I have to call these people today or connect with. And then from there, everything else is like, so there's priority 1, and then there's everything else, right? And it could technically, I guess, all be ranked, but for me, it's all about my A list. So I do A, B, C, and D, my list of sphere of influence. I also, another kind of theme that I've always liked, Deborah, that a good buddy of mine and business partner in EXP, Eric Kelly, has always operated by. He coined a term called 5 and 5. So, which I love, because it's a very simple thing, which is 5 connects a day with somebody in a sphere of influence to just further the relationship. And then 5 connects a day with somebody in the sales cycle. And if you could just do that, like, you're going to build a really great business. So I need simpler themes personally, because the alphabet thing and all that stuff, like, it's just, I don't know, that it's almost overwhelming for me. When I'm working buyer seller leads, if you will, anything that's brand new gets called right now, and then right now again, and then right now again, and right now again. I think we've talked about that before, probably on one of my previous talks here. And then it's all about follow-up. Like, I can't tell you, like, the agents on my team that have been with me for a long time, and even those that are like, I got one in Colorado who's no longer on my team, runs his own business, but we're still business partners on a few things that, like, especially through EXP. Like, we still laugh to this day because I was so hard on him about following up on the same leads that we bought the previous month and 6 months before that. And the reality is it, like, you cannot call and text and connect with those people enough, in my opinion. And so it's like, it's follow-up. It's the follow-up. Like, the fortune is in the follow-up. I know we've all heard that cliche saying, but it's cliche for a reason, because it's true and it works. If you just, I built my whole business on that, on the follow-up, and knowing that when I got a new lead, they really weren't, like, they're probably not closing in the next 30 or even 90 days. Some warm referrals do, but most leads were closing in the next 12 to 18 months. And I was like, cool, I don't care when you close. I just want to be the guy you close with.
So I want to make a couple comments, share a few ideas, and then get your impression. So I mean, so far, guys, I hope the notes you've gotten, I love how you kicked it off with, we got to stop dating our clients and really building deep and valuable relationships where they, and not just client for life, but, like, value for life. I love that you called out that people that aren't going to do the bare minimums, like, hope everybody heard it. He's not working with them. So, and we're in a market right now where if people aren't doing the right activities and they aren't willing to, they're not going to survive. You made a comment, fortune is in the follow-up. And I think, yes, you're right, but I think the fortune is in the data. Like, data is the new dollar. Although I don't think that's a new idea, that data is the new dollar. And so tell me what your thoughts are on this, because this is something that I spend a lot of time now that I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for both Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang. But it's like, how can we turn that data into dollars? And so tell me what your thoughts are on this, Kevin. First thing I think we need to look at is, what is the lifetime value of a customer? And if we're meeting a first-time home buyer in their 20s, like, we need to really start thinking, in my market, with what I think rates are going to do, this is, and we need to start thinking over the course of 40 years, like a 30, 40-year period of time, where is this client? And we're almost mapping out the lifetime value of that customer. And we're even getting some alignment with that customer when we're meeting, like, oh, we're going to move up into this house. And if this goes like this, we're going to, we're building out a real estate map for people, and a manage under, how we're going to manage their mortgage. And then I think every realtor, you need to really start thinking about, what can your loan officer, how can they turn your data into dollars? So if you're a realtor listening to this, and it's like, we're beyond CRM now. Like, if this is what your database looks like, you're behind, because this is what Rocket, Zillow, every big business in the country, this is what their database looks like. Like, they know whose credit just went up. They know who just had a baby. They know who is most likely to buy, sell, refinance their home. And so one of the things that we're advocating within the community, Kevin, is where I'd like to get your opinion. And really what we're building here at Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang is a borrower intelligence platform, so that we're getting signals from our database.
Yep.
We're creating insights. So, like, a really good example of an insight is where, like, a lot of loan officers, thousands of loan officers get these cash out alerts where the family's debt is this, their FICO score is this, their home value is this, their home equity is this. By the way, a realtor couldn't get this insight if they wanted to. You can't get access to credit data, but your loan officer can. So one of the things we're teaching, and tell me what you think about this, would you like it if your loan officer was managing, they closed the loan for your people, and if they were calling you to say, hey, such and such just had a baby, they were reaching out to the client and someone had a baby, or such and such just hit an equity milestone. So we're really turning the data into smart calls. So one of the things I'm seeing from the interviews I'm doing with loan officers is that the loan officers that are data first loan officers, by from 8 to 9, they're calling out on the signals in their database, and then they're doing their A calls, but they're putting the data first. What are your thoughts on that?
So let me just say, yes, that's the intelligent way. But it's hard enough to get an agent to not it's so hard to get an agent to not just think about next month's transactions. 99% of agents, the conversation's about next month's closings, and that's what they care about. The truth is, maybe not 99, it's 88%. It's about 88% of the agents can think past next month's closings. So yeah,
89, what percent?
Yeah, dude, it's less than 90%. It's or around 90% of agents are really only thinking about next month's closings. And so when you all this stuff,
But that's not how you win in this market, right?
No, I know that, but also let's look at the attrition rate in real estate. When you look at the attrition rate, how many people actually ever renew their license, or how many times they renew their license, it lines up. So when you start talking about long-term, everything you just said, yeah, the answer is yes. That I love when I'm calling my sphere, or my top 5, my 5 and 5 or whatever, I would love a reason to call. You literally just gave examples of 50 different reasons I could use to call. I call somebody in my database every week if I've got those types of tools. The gap to bridge, in my opinion, is that most agents will not think about that, where I think the value of the loan officer partner can actually do that with and for them. But it's a struggle to get a real estate agent to think about that stuff. If it might look cool and shiny, but then to actually act on it, it's gonna be hard. That said, I think that's all amazing stuff. The struggle is I believe, is gonna be to have the LO and the real estate agent to not just to have that data, but to actually use it.
Right. That's kind of where Steve De La Vega came to a couple of weeks ago. We had him on here, had a similar conversation. He had a similar message to everyone, that we, no matter how you say it, we got to go beyond.
I taught Steve everything
to have the
that I
loan
know.
officer do it. The loan officer needs to be monitoring the data and making the calls and bringing back, and for every loan officer listening to this, your goal when you're talking to that cash out alert, yes, you want to do a loan and you'd be great showing them a cash out, but I'd make your number one goal, try to get a CMA for an agent. So this is a family that has some, wants to know how to manage this next stage financially. Well, let's get a CMA for an agent. So you've got a listing appointment, and then let's help them. Hey, should you move up? Should you move down? Or should you refinance? And lots of times, even in this market, moving up is what makes sense. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, to me, it all comes back to give me a reason to call, to make the phone call, and to build the relationship. Right? That's all it's about, in my opinion. If I can further the relationship, there'll be a transaction, or there'll be a point eventually, or maybe 11 points where I make money, where we're able to monetize it and able to help them by moving them forward. Maybe it's the refi, or maybe it's the move up, or the investment property with some of the equity, things like that. I think those are all they're spot on. The challenge is, and I believe the challenge has always been, at least for the time that I've been in the industry, which granted isn't that long, the challenge is to get people to actually use the tools that are available.
Right.
The reason, you mentioned Rocket, the reason why Rocket and Zillow, etc., the reason why those are now so prominent is because they have just found a way to effectively do the things that most agents are not willing to do, which is why most agents are now
And they do it
paying.
consistently. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, listen to this, everybody. I've spoken at Rocket multiple times. I've done multiple site visits, and the magic is the training and leadership. Everybody in the organization is trained on best practices, and they have the systems and tools so that everyone in the organization is just doing the right activities more consistently than everyone else. So it's all skill-based training and consistent best practice activities. And guys, we're here to support you. Win by Noon will help support you in terms of building a social media platform, building a brand. Deborah is. And so let's do this. I want to make sure we have time to do this book review. Any book that you've read 6 times recently, and it totally dominated your lunch with Todd. I want to have time for that. So let's go rapid fire. We got 10 minutes. Give us other ideas. Maybe we don't unpack them as much, but everybody comes away from this with 3-ish great ideas on the right activities in this market.
So I'm gonna move away from like a sales activity for a moment. And I just believe this is a wise business activity. But reviewing, being real about expenses. It's so easy as over the last couple of years for expense creep to come in. I recorded a podcast on this recently, and it was really just like a reiteration of a article I had written for Inman at the beginning of COVID about tightening the belt for your business, right? Tightening the financial belt and really reviewing things. I remember, I think it was 2015, I got an email from Gary Keller and had these points in it that are actually relevant today. They really weren't that relevant then, but they're super relevant right now. And one of those things was like, make it a game with your expense management. Like, try to reduce your expenses by 10% every single month. And so like the game I've always played, or I shouldn't say my business partner and I've always played, is like, could we get rid of this expense, whatever this is? And if we did, would it impact production? And if the answer is no, it won't impact production, we're going to cut it. And we've also done in conjunction with that, we've always had like, here's things that we would cut if things get tight, if things slow down, here's what would go next. So it's almost like an ABC list of like what to cut. Like right now we should cut it. It's pure fat. This would be the thing that we cut if things really get tight, or start to tighten up a lot. And then here's the drastic cuts we would take. Maybe that's the C list. In addition to that, of habit we got in when we started doing that was just literally reviewing finances, like actually every dollar spent in the business once a week. So grab the statement for the credit card or the debit card on Monday mornings or Friday afternoons, and line by line, does anything stick out? Does anything look weird here? And when you do that, obviously it doesn't take that much time, and it helps your bookkeeper immensely from having to ask you questions about things that actually might be one-time expenses and things like that. So I think that's super important. Being more visible than ever, super important. So whether you're an agent or a lender, like leading a team, so let's say you're a real estate agent and you've got other agents, buyers agents, listing agents, whatever, and staff, like being more present and visible than ever, I think is something you've got to do. Like if you're making lead gen calls, make the lead gen calls with them. Make sure that they see you doing that. Be more present with your clients. The consumers, I think, you've probably heard this a million times. It's been beat to death, but consumers are more confused than ever. I mean, so are agents for that matter. And so are lenders for that matter. People are more confused than ever. And so the more real talk and straight talk and reality-based conversations you can have, like those are going to benefit you. And then the other thing, like I've been telling people for the last few months, especially as things started to change, is don't get caught up in, don't let a good story distract you from the facts, because there's still good stories out there. And again, it seems to be the good story is either the sky is falling, or I got 100 offers on my house this weekend in 42 hours, 48 hours or whatever. It seems, if it's on the news, it's still, because it's still 8 weeks old. If it's on a website, it might actually be something totally not true that's about the sky falling. Don't let those, like, if your conversations, the conversations that you're having with your consumers are based on the news or something I could hear at work, you're not, just quit now. Like, be a professional and understand the stats and the numbers and the truth of the market in your marketplace. If you don't understand that, like, you better, like, you got to learn.
All right, guys. So we are really close to changing the chapter. If anyone's watching this and you have a question, let them know. We did put a link to the Kevin's podcast, and it was all around tightening your financial belt or financial belt tightening. So check out that podcast and you can hear Kevin talk about that particular tactic and strategy in more detail. Todd, anything else you want to try to pull out of, just what realtors should be doing and how loan officers and realtors should be partnering before we flip the page?
Well, I mean, I love the idea of being more visible, and the fact that I love your wrapper on it, Kevin. Don't let a good story distract you from the facts. Kevin and I were both at a social media event the other day. Now, Kevin's so good at it. I don't think he was there to learn. He was there to actually support someone in his EXP network that was promoting the event. But Kevin's there, he's adding value, to folks along the way. So when you say be visible, what do you think? I like the idea of getting alongside your team and calling with your team, but how can you be more visible to your clients?
I mean, I think that's actually calling them. Maybe, like, literally, it's communication. Here's the way I've always wanted to frame it. I want to answer the question before it's asked, regardless of the market, regardless of how the market, whether it's up or down. Like, this started me in my short sale days, because I also don't like talking on the phone. So I'm annoyed when I get distracted from something to answer a question for something that I really shouldn't have to answer. So it's like, how can I give you everything you need that's the truth, that's factual, that will answer your question before I ask? So that way, when I do call you at our scheduled time, like, you're going, oh no, yeah, no, I don't think I actually have any questions, right? Or it's very simple. And so for me, it is coming up with some sort of cadence of communication. So think about the last 3 years. If you're a real estate agent that has had, that got into the market in the last 3 years, you have no idea what it's like to update your sellers with showing information. You've only had to go through offers. So to talk to your seller for maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row to review showing data, as opposed to the 20 offers you got, that's a different talk. That's a completely different talk, especially when starting from expectation at the listing appointment all the way through. And so if you haven't had to do that, like, that's just a different skill than, hey, here's your offers, right? Hey, here's the amount of showings we had. Here's the feedback. Here's the aggregate of the feedback that we've had. Here's where this lines up with the data we talked about on the last appointment. Here's what do you want to do going forward? And actually involving them in the strategy. I'm a big believer in consulting with my clients and not presenting to my clients. So I want to give them the data and lead them to come up with their own answers that are in alignment with the way I would prefer that they do it.
Love it, guys. So, kind of closing wrapper on this chapter of the conversation is get out there and educate. Consumers are more confused than ever. Realtors are. It did remind me, 2 of the interviews I've done this, in the past few months, where the loan officer was actually up. Denise Donahue was one of those. Nicole Ruth was one of those. This is an 18-minute video that's been watched over 2,000 times from a few weeks ago. I put a link down below, guys. I can't recommend enough that you watch this conversation with Nicole. If you look at the show notes down below, she also showed a few examples of how she's, I love what you said, consulting. This is a 3-minute mortgage coach video where she is consulting and she's showing an agent, like a listing agent, look, this is how you could do a 2-1 buy down would make this house more affordable. And here's how a permanent buy down might avoid a price reduction. And here are strategies to make this home more saleable. So if you're a mortgage coach on this, you need to be educating your listing agents, your buyer's agents on how financing can help sell a home at the end of the day. Kevin, anything else you want to say before we get into the book review?
I'm gonna say, and this is you didn't ask me to say this, but I mean, I'm just gonna say it. When you have a tool like Mortgage Coach, and you could actually visually share these things, use like those are the things that you've got to be putting in front of your clients. Something that gives them the truth, so that way they're not just worried about because the rates went up or they heard the Fed's gonna, not like the noise of the news and all that. Like, forget about that. Look for the facts that you can share. I love that when you have something like a tool like Mortgage Coach, where you actually have things that are relevant to the consumer. I'd be making that like that's my story.
Yeah.
And the one other thing I wanted to add about getting in front of your clients is, guys, we're 2/3 of the way done with the year. And although we have 4 months left, there's only 92 business days left because of all the holidays. But the holidays are a great time to reconnect and re-engage. And whether you're doing friendly competitions where it's the best, pumpkin carving competition with your clients or agents, it's an easy way to pick up the phone and have an excuse to call. So I'll put a link in the chat too of a webinar that Todd and I hosted for Win by Noon of how to host events before, during, and after, and how to do all the planning. So y'all can go back and rewatch that. But don't forget to maximize the opportunity that the last, couple months of the year has, that you can re-engage with people.
Awesome. So great stuff. We'll have some closing thoughts as we wrap this up, but we've got 18 minutes left, Kevin. And I know there's a book that you've read 6 times recently, and something you're very passionate about. First of all, what is the book? Why 6 times? And what are some takeaways you want to share?
So the book is called, this is worth writing down. So Deborah, get your pen, or whoever else is taking notes, the 3 people. Like, it's called Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. Die with Zero. And I'll just share a little story. So the person that recommended this to me is my good friend and business partner through EXP, Curtis Johnson. And he kind of casually recommended it at dinner in late June. It was June 19th, in fact. And we were at dinner and he recommended, he's like, "Oh, I just read this book. It's pretty good." I think of Curtis as like, I jokingly will say he probably has cash in a Folgers can that's buried in the backyard. And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'm good. I know how to spend money. Like, in fact, I'm really comfortable spending money." And he's like, no, read it. So I was like, "All right, man, I love you." So I'm going to read it. And the thing about this book is, I would say this, it's the nuanced conversation of being responsible financially, financially for the future. However, it's also about not going overboard. So I like to tell people, if you don't have an income or don't know how to save or invest, it might not be good for you. In fact, it would be okay. There's parts of it, and then if you're like this type of person that just makes a lot of money, but also spends it like what I'd call a drunken sailor, it's probably not the book for you. But it's that nuanced conversation in the middle, and it intersects money, it intersects health, life experiences, and life stages. And it really is the nuance between all of those things that has, it just, it's forced me into a totally different perspective. And I can't say enough good things about it.
And it's it was funny because you and I got together for coffee, and like I said, it came up in the first few minutes, and I had seen it in a thread somewhere on Facebook. Someone who I respect, I don't even remember who it was, had recommended the book. And the interesting thing about it was, I've always been an experience guy, right? And that's one of the things that impacted you, Kevin. You said you went out and you booked like a really nice Disneyland vacation for your family. You guys have spent a few weeks every summer in San Diego, and now you're going to be spending maybe even more time there next summer. So can you talk about that experience piece, because that's one part of it, and then let's also then shift after that to the money part of it.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the experience thing in a minute, but the thing I want to say first is, I thought this is just gonna be like any other money book, not just like any other money book, but a money book, right? And most money books are the same. There's a few really good ones, but the quote unquote problem with the money books is they're typically teaching you about how to optimize your net worth. And this book is about optimizing your life fulfillment. And so they're drastically different. And I'm a believer in there's only one priority. There's no such thing as priorities. I believe there is the priority, and then everything else, until priority is no longer the priority, nothing else is. And so optimizing for life fulfillment versus net worth, drastically different things, although there's a lot of crossover. So you talk about experience, yeah, that is the thing. Like, there's practical tools in here to help you. Like, if you're the type of person who maybe struggles with how to do experiences or whatever, I mean, he's got this concept in there of that really stuck out to me, of experience points, literally having like a point value. So like the example that I shared with Todd that he sort of just referenced there is, so my family, we go 2-3 weeks every year to San Diego and rent a beach house. So let's just say that's worth 1,000 points on my system and my scale. And I get to decide what my scale is, but maybe a trip to Hawaii is 5,000 points. Maybe a trip to the ice cream shop is 20 points, but literally having the scale of experience points, if you really to like chart things out. So that's one thing. And then he's also got this other model that goes in alignment with experience points called life buckets. So times in your life, because so much of this is about where you're at in your life. Now think about it. When your health is at its peak, for most people is like when their net worth is at its lowest, right? Early 20s. So your health is at its peaking and your net worth is typically lower than, not everybody, but most. And even if you're like a super fit 50-year-old, you're not as fit as a super fit 25-year-old. And you're not going to be as capable as a super fit 75-year-old as you are as a super fit 50-year-old. So there's these things to take into consideration. Think about your typical person who maybe does a great job with retirement and savings, and they retire at, say, the age of 65, and they finally take that cruise, and they go on this cruise and they get off the boat and they're injured in 5 minutes, right? There's so many injuries that happen because they didn't take care of themselves, or they waited to a point in their life. So there's these buckets of our life where certain experiences are actually worth more, because there's certain things that we can experience at 40 that we're probably not going to be able to experience at 70. And there was experiences at 25 that I'm probably not going to experience now in my 40s or 50s, and so on and so forth. So he does a great job of kind of this concept of life buckets and how that intersects with experiences and experience points. And then there's this other concept, and I think I think everyone will resonate with this, a memory dividend. So think about the best family vacation you've ever taken in your life, or the best vacation period. And then think about, for the years after that, how many times you showed the pictures, shared the stories, thought about it. So you end up like those experience points actually pay you a dividend, right? So I got this experience of going to Greece or to Italy or to Hawaii or whatever, or this massive cruise. And that was great in the moment. But often what happens, especially as you get towards the end of life, it's those memories that have actually paid you more than the experience itself. And so just the book does a really good job of centering you on that, to be purposeful in kind of creating those things that will pay you memory dividends in the future. And then just being real, like part of it is like this probably not a fun subject. Actually both Todd and Dave, you guys both said something to me about it, but like the Weeks in Life poster, that's where that came from me, right? Because part of this is about like literally getting real. And if you really want to follow the advice in the book, there's some exercises to go through and take an educated guess at when you're going to die. I mean, because unfortunately we're all going to die. Like, that's so far the world is undefeated, and we all die eventually. And so taking a real stab at that, and then making sure that we're optimizing for fulfillment, and not just net worth.
Wow, I love all the concepts. The bullseye is life fulfillment, kind of the compass to get there is money, experience, health. Um, I wrote down seasons because I was just thinking seasons in life, but I think
Yep.
you can life buckets.
Yeah.
I love that term, memory dividend. I think we can all intuitively get that different experiences create different memory dividends. So guys, we got 10 minutes left. If the audience, you guys have any questions, whether it's about the book or the other things, put those in comments now. Todd, anything else you want to pull out of this? Because I know you spent 90 minutes talking about this book. I don't, have you got it yet, but Todd, have you started reading the book or listening to the book?
No, I read it months ago. It
Okay,
was
so
it was
you
on
were
my
already
yeah.
on
In
it.
fact, yeah, I read it, but I re-skimmed it, right? I highlight everything. So I re-skimmed it after Kevin and I talked about it because it was impactful on me because it changed my mindset around money, right? I grew up, my dad is super cheap. His parents were super cheap. My grandparents all died with a lot of money that they've given to my parents who don't need it and my aunts and uncles who don't need it. And my parents thankfully are still alive. And, I don't know how much money they have, but it's probably pretty sizable, just as my guess. And not that they didn't do great things for us as kids, but we had a great life. I always, joked I was the poorest of the rich kids because I had a job to support what I did to keep up with my friends. But where it's impacted me, because he talks about also giving, charitable giving while you're alive, and then helping your family while you're alive to see it. And so for me, one of the impacts is on the fact that I've got kids in their 20s who transparently are going to be poor. They're, going to be, two of them are going to be school teachers, and one of them is going to be a therapist trying to, help people overcome anxiety issues. And, I realized that I can be more impactful to their lives now, having them stress less about money and have better experiences if I help them now versus, save my pennies like other people have. So that was one takeaway. And then the other part of it is that one of the things that I appreciate about Kevin, I've only got a couple of friends. I used to do literally a weekly, then I went monthly, and now it's kind of a couple times a year finance meeting with Josh Metal. So Kevin talked about how, he and Fred, his business partner, have these meetings every week about money. And, I do think you have to find friends who you can chat with. So I can share openly with Kevin. We talk about money, and we talked about, having, what's the number that you need to have. And so, we spent a lot of time, nerding out over dividend stocks and other stuff that, transparently, I don't have those conversations with other people that I really enjoyed. So, that was a piece of it. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I'll be quiet, let you and Deb ask some questions, but is Kevin interviewed him on his podcast. So over in the sidebar, we put the link to his podcast. So make sure you subscribe to it. And then the other part is that when you find value in it, make sure you leave them a review, right? I mean, people who have podcasts, the way you get more viewers is by having reviews and downloads. So definitely make sure you hit the subscribe button. And then Kevin, when's your interview with him coming out in the next week or two?
Monday, actually. Yeah, I think we'll have it out on Monday. So if all goes well with editing, which last I checked it, we were on track. So yeah, Monday that interview will be out, and he was awesome. He was very insightful.
I can't wait. I can't wait to watch it. That's that kind of the key. And then I think the last thing, actually, I said it was my last thing, but I'm cutting you off, Dave. Dave, you posted that chart of the number of weeks that you have left, but listen to some of the past calls that Dave and Kevin and I have done on health, and you'll find out that Kevin is my soul brother in my health journey. And so even though you have to be cognizant of what that end looks like, he and I are making strides in our lives and our families' lives to live longer. So check those out as well.
All right. So one thing that, from my perspective, I already bought the book. I just bought it while we were talking. Gotta love, how easy it is to buy something on Amazon or buy something digitally. But here's my push after hearing the thesis on this. We talk all the time about being the captain of the wealth team. We talk about, the financial literacy crisis in America. And to me, this book just sounds like a must read, on the path as a mortgage or real estate professional. If you want to be financially literate, it sounds like this book unpacks things beyond just rule of 72. Should I invest in real estate versus stocks? No, this is about life. I love that financial literacy is about life fulfillment. I mean, at the end of the day, we want money, for security. We want money for experiences. We want money for all these things. So must read. I will have it read by next week. Deborah, any questions you have or anything you want to call out before we run out of time today?
No, just that, I think anyone who follows me or knows me well, my health game needs to level up. In fact, Todd only helped with this matter where he sent me a ton of Oreos and goldfish. And I knew it was him because as I was looking out the window, someone was unbagging and I saw fruit and my niece was here and she was like, did you order groceries? I'm like, I think those are oranges. That's not for me. I don't order oranges. And I'm like, oh my gosh, once I saw it, I'm like, this has got to be Todd because he also mixed in some water. So this is something that I say this every year and I fail every year when it comes to health. I need to grow up with what I eat and what I feed my body. I'm taking small baby steps. Todd, you did not help me this week, but I'm going to recommit and read this book. And hopefully the more information I get, it'll be enough pain to cause me to just get my butt in gear and grow up. So I also wanted to ask this question from Paul. He said, where does Kevin get his information, statistics, documentation to support advice for clients if the internet or news are not good sources? What do you recommend for that kind of evidence to help?
I mean, we're really lucky here in Phoenix because we have something called the Cromford Report, which is the best data available for our housing market. That said, regardless of market, there's a low. I haven't been to a city yet. I've been to a lot, and I've talked to a lot of real estate agents. There's not a city or marketplace that doesn't have some expert on data in their marketplace. And I promise you, it's never a reporter. Never ever once is it a reporter. It's good. So whether you got to take that stuff directly from the MLS or there's oftentimes a title company rep who is like, they geek out on that stuff. There's somebody in your town, no matter where you live, and if there's not, by the way, just become that person who geeks out on the real data. And it's just not hard. It's not that hard to get. You can just get it directly from the MLS.
And also, guys, Keeping Current Matters is a great resource. The Keeping Current Matters blog is an incredible resource. And then I want to push everybody in our community, if there are some trusted sources of content that you have in your city, just share it. Like that might, one, help another member. So share it in our group, share it in this thread. What are your most trusted sources of data and insights in your market? And then that brings up another thing, as I've interviewed a lot of the best, because this is we got to educate people in every market. A lot of the mortgage coaches will have 2 or 3 TCAs, total cost analysis, that are part of that. And then they're going to have 5 to 20 slides. So as you find this data, you want to put it into a slide kit. I use Google Slides, but I don't care whether you use, PowerPoint, Keynote. I would just push everybody, have your go-to. Like every month, I update my go-to slides that I use for edu selling. At the end of the day, I'm educating. But yeah, I want to bring on members of Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang. You guys want to recruit realtors and home buyers, home sellers, people that need loans, have that slide kit. Do you do that by any chance, Kevin? Do you have like a kind of like slides of the month or kind of a toolkit of content that you are ready to show when the time is right?
It's, we don't actually go through the making content out of it. We just we use the data and interpret it in conversations.
Okay, got
and
it.
So we'll take commentary, like a write-up and the raw numbers of whether it's the overall market or a zip code or a city, whenever we're drilling down like one-on-one with the client. But we don't use it to create content. That makes way too much sense and it would be good marketing. So.
Well, maybe it's something to consider adding. Well, dude, as always, it's just I get energized, I get fired up. I got more work to do now. I've got a book I've got to read over the weekend. Really appreciate you, brother. Any closing words before we close out this call? Anything you want to make sure you tell people?
No, man. Just thanks again for allowing me to be part of this community again. I appreciate it. I want to ask you to be what Todd said. I'd love it if you guys listen. Bill Perkins will be the guest next week on the podcast. Normally it's a real estate professional, but it's not often you get a chance to hunt down one of your favorite authors and get them to spend an hour with you. So I did. And so hopefully you'll get some value out of it. And I just want to say thanks a lot for including me again, guys.
Appreciate you, brother. Guys, this is a wrap. If you got value, give it a like, share it with your real estate friends, share it with other loan officers, and have a great weekend, everybody.
That was a lot of fun. Have fun, guys.